Hi, everybody. We have AJ from Audacious Commerce. He's a consultant helping D2C businesses how to scale their e-com businesses, and over years of experience running his own shops and helping multiple clients. AJ is here today with us to share some of his experience and tips. Thank you for being here, AJ.
My absolute pleasure. This is always fun. I always enjoy getting to talk to you. So it's been a lot of fun.
Likewise.
Oh, thanks.
So let's jump into that right now. We have a few questions for you.
Right.
When it comes to businesses who mostly start with Amazon and then grow either on Amazon or outside of Amazon, how would you describe all the phases that they go through, like the most important ones?
Yeah, so there's 4 stages in a business, what we call the business life cycle. So there's the startup phase, there's the scale phase, there's maturity, then there's decline. And so, a lot of people in that startup phase want to get as much capital as possible, as quickly as possible. And they find actually they've done a lot of things very poorly and very, very badly, which then hampers their ability to scale. And so for me, I think of that kind of that startup phase as anything below kind of $1 million, whether that's pounds, euros, dollars, and ring after it, right? In terms of annual revenue figures. And so you can get to $1 million, and I know we've talked about it before. I'm guessing you'll talk about this with a guest. You can get to $1 million in annual run rate through a single channel. So whether that is Amazon, whether that's Walmart, whether that's your own DC website, whether that's retail, it doesn't really matter. But you can do it through one channel with one offer with one kind of ICP, one customer type, right? As you get into scale, you need to look at other ways of kind of widening the customer base. And so, say you're doing $1 million on Amazon, you think, well, this is great. You may think, well, actually, is there a way for us to sell more by having our own DC website, by being able to collect some of the customer data that we can't, from Amazon? So, email addresses, phone numbers, addresses, those sorts of things that we can't naturally get because Amazon is a closed ecosystem that then allows us to...
They don't give out anything.
They don't give out anything, do they? No. So they don't even give out gold stars anymore, do they? But yeah, so it's that whole kind of thing of can we encourage enough people to come across or to start using our D2C website alongside the Amazon, because Amazon, as we all know, is a really, really powerful channel for most businesses if it's done correctly. But can we do D2C alongside it? And I think the whole mentality of, I remember Ralph Lauren, this was back in the 50s, or the 60s, I guess, 70s. He was selling ties under his brand name, Ralph Lauren, to Macy's. I believe it was Macy's, right? And then he did a first range, through big department stores in America, and then he decided to open his own boutiques. And at the time, all the retailers were like, well, you can't do that, you're going to ruin our sales. He said, no, your sales are going to double, because people are going to come and experience how the brand should be, and then they come and buy more because you've got a wider range. And that's what happens. And so, the parallel to me is trying to say, well, if we do Amazon really, really well, we can open another channels, whether that's retail, whether that's our own D2C, can we also get people to boost sales on the primary channel? Right, and I always think that's possible because their value prop is completely different. And I think that can be really, really exciting. That can be really, really a great way of scaling. Because again, to scale, you're either trying to do one of two things, which is you're either trying to get people to buy more, or you're trying to attract new clients. That's essentially all you're trying to do, right? Those two things. And obviously, if you can do both at once, fantastic.
Let me ask you, so if a seller decides to scale the business further while enhancing the number of channels, that is going either D2C or using TikTok or other marketplaces, what would you prioritize?
I really encourage people to think back to what they did in the initial 90 days of their business. Because you probably were quite scrappy, you're probably quite deterministic in terms of what you were doing, you're probably quite... I use the word kind of narcissistic. We're doing this direction, we're going, full pelt, right? And, basically screw everybody else, right? And so for me, I think it's trying to hold on to that mentality of we are doing this one thing very, very well alongside what's already working. And we do it because what's already working is profitable, it's good, but we're nowhere near where we believe the business could be. And rather than taking massive risk where we're going to try, and I know you probably have had this, people come to you and say, right, we have an Amazon business. You go, how much are you doing? They're doing 5-10K a month. They go, great. And you go, well, why not to go D2C? Because it's going to be much more profitable. And you go, okay, great. Well, you do realize it's going to cost you another 30,000 euros to set up the D2C, get a 3PL, get Klaviyo on board, get Gorgeous, all of these great brands, right? And people go, well, I need to get to the bank. And you're like, well, no, that's the wrong way of doing things. You need to be profitable to begin with and be methodical and say, right, can I throw up a WooCommerce site over the weekend, which doesn't look pretty or attractive, but at least allows me to test, right? Can I get a SKU into Walmart, for example, or can I get a SKU onto TikTok Shop, right? One SKU and grow from there and be very methodical about it, right? And so I think it's about trying to reimagine or remember how you were in that initial phase and try to apply that scrappiness and that deterministic behavior to what you're doing, so you don't bet the entire house on something that you don't have any data to know whether it will work out or not.
Got it. And in terms of the ways that you start and generate revenue and scale up, could you tell us what will be the first and most important thing to do, and when do you need outside help to grow further?
Right. So I think within your business, it will become very, very clear where you have a skills gap or where you have a time gap. And what I mean is do you have 3 hours a day to do your social media properly, right? I mean, you don't need to hire somebody to do that, and that becomes quite obvious because you'll get to the end of the week and you think, we haven't actually posted on social media for 2 days, right? And so it's about trying to figure out what gaps you have by yourself or what natural. So for me, I don't particularly enjoy posting on social media, so I find an agency who does, right? Because that's just not something I understand. Whereas SEO and email marketing are my 2 kind of strongest channels, right? Yeah, and I know we will have lots of people in common who are doing Amazon really well, doing TikTok Shop really, really well, and the agencies who are doing this day in day out, so they know how to get results very quickly. And so I think be honest with yourself, and analyze what you're doing, analyze what channels you're using, and if you've got capacity to grow another one, because obviously you can't grow another channel if you are working 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's just not going to work, right? Right.
Exactly.
And then be honest and say, right, I enjoy doing the email marketing because that's a lot of fun. I enjoy being clever and doing all the data, but I don't enjoy doing all the creative element because I'm not a creative person. So I need to find a freelancer or an agency who can come in and can do some of that stuff, right? And they can balance me out. And then go find and cut a deal with somebody that can do some of that other stuff that you can't. I think at some point you have to make the decision, in that startup phase, money will always be tight. You'll always be amazed if you get to the end of the month and you have some money left in the bank, because it just is how it is. And so it becomes clear to you if you have money at the end of the month, right, should we be investing this more in marketing? Should we be investing this more in ops? What's going to enable us to get, say, $2 back for every dollar we spend, or $5 back for every dollar we spend? And do it that way. And then at some point, you only make the decision of, right, we can in-house everybody, and we can build out a marketing team or an ops team that makes sense for where we're going. Or you hire a competent CMO who can kind of manage agency relationships with multiple agencies, who can then deliver on a specific silo. And the way that I like to run those is I like to introduce everybody to each other and say, right, we're working for this common output, which is, we're trying to hit 10 million in sales next year, right? And so we're now a collective team, and there's no room for ego, there's no room for point scoring or finger pointing, right? But we as multiple agencies have to get on and have to work together collectively to get the outcome that we've agreed with the client.
Yeah, so it's actually very difficult sometimes for the clients to keep all the agencies they work with or employees they work with accountable, because it's a complex system and everything influences something else. When it comes to, let's say, growth above a threshold of let's say 10,000 per month, and you need to invest more money in performance marketing and set up all the email automations, mostly using Klaviyo, but could be done with other channels. How would you approach building up a team? Whether it be people who you employ or agencies who you hire, and how do you keep them both accountable?
Yeah, right. So internal team members, how I think about building internal teams is I always think, how can I find an expert who has some strategic understanding. So they understand, right, we're attacking our market from these 4 channels. So, paid Facebook, email, SMS, and SEO, right? They're the expert in paid Facebook, right? But they understand that they have to coexist with the other 3 experts. And what you can do in that situation is you can try, and this becomes a very, very difficult thing. It's easy to say, it's very, very simple to say, but it's not easy to implement, is how do we set a person up for success? How do we give them a very simple job? It's not going to be an easy job, but how can we, if the average person sat in meetings in your company for 5 hours a day, it means they've probably got 2.5 hours of actual work time, which is not enough time to get anything substantially done each week, right? Whereas if we try and limit the amount of meetings we have, we'll limit the amount of meeting time that we have and get people more tight around, if this is a half an hour meeting and if we don't get through our 5 points, there's going to be no meeting next week about this. So we need to get to the 5 points, we need to stay on track. And so for me, it's about trying to think about how we can have, happy employees that are doing a simple task very well, and then have the resources and the energy to focus on the complexities of quote-unquote a simple task, because again, it's not easy to implement a lot of this stuff, right? I then think about, so for years now I've been saying, when it comes to KPIs, there's 2 things I always recommend. So the first thing is you have no more than 3 KPIs per channel, per role, and then you pyramid them, right? So you have your organizational ones at the top. So you have 3 organizational ones. So they may be revenue growth, customer acquisition number, right? Profit for the year, right? So you have those 3. Then the next tier down is, you may have a CMO and a COO and a CSO, right? And they'll have their 3 that tie back to the top 3, and so on and so forth. So you have this pyramid, but everybody's responsible for 3 KPIs that have a direct impact on the person above them. And therefore, it becomes a lot simpler to say, what activities are you doing this week that are going to impact your 3 KPIs, rather than saying, well, how many meetings have you had? How great were the conversations? And by doing it this way, you hopefully cut out a lot of the idiocy of people who want to look busy and not be productive. Or, right? You understand? I understand a consultant. You actually got a team of people who you have to be responsible to, right? And so for me, it's that whole kind of thing of saying, are we creating happy employees that are doing a simple job that are held accountable to very simple metrics, are well resourced, are well encouraged, are trained, and they have some facility to learn, to grow, and to improve. And if that means that they end up leaving, fantastic. If it means they end up staying, then at least we've invested in the core team to grow. With agencies, I think a lot of people make the mistake with agencies where they abdicate, they don't delegate. So they hire an agency, they go, well, you're the professionals, here's a big bag of money. And the joke I've always used for many years, and this is a bit crude, so I apologize in advance, is when people say to me, well, I've hired an agency, I go, well, what did they spend that money on? Was it cooking hookers? Because oftentimes they can't explain to me what the agency have done for their check. And to me, it probably hopefully see that's just as good as cooking hookers, right? And so for me, it's about trying to say to the agency, right, internally we are trying to hit these 3 big numbers, right? We're expecting you to be able to deliver on these 3 KPIs, which we're going to measure you by. Do you feel those are appropriate? Do you feel those are relevant? Do you feel those are accurate? And therefore, if you don't hit these numbers 3 months in a row, we have the ability to fire you because you haven't met what we've agreed that you can perform at. And I know a lot of people don't like that mentality, and a lot of people don't like that whole idea of I'm trying to get people to make commercial decisions in a very uncommercial. The average employee is very commercial, right? We have to kind of agree, right? Because their output isn't tied to actually being able to eat at the end of the week. Money yours is. We have to be commercial. And so for me, it's trying to get employees and the stakeholders in their agency staff or the agencies or the freelancers to think more commercially around, you're only going to have the money to be employed next month if you can hit these numbers. And therefore, if you can't, you need to either say, well, I'm really sorry that I can't, and therefore I'm asking you to make a commercial decision to fire me, or we have a conversation about it. And, I know for me, I've lost clients because I've said to them, well, I'm asking you to make a commercial decision. It's not emotional. I don't care if you like me as a person. Well, I hope you do like me as a person, right? But that's not what I'm asking you to do at this point. I'm asking you to, I can hit the numbers or I can't. if I can't hit numbers, then fine, that's part. But let's not get to the point where we're finger pointing or we're accusing each other of doing, of acting in bad faith. Let's just sit here and go, okay, right, great, it hasn't worked out, c'est la vie, and yeah, we'll move on.
Got it. In the end, you gotta make the ends meet as a business. Yeah. So it doesn't work for anybody employed with you just to play around and be completely emotional if things don't work out. So it's better to cut earlier than later if this means sustainability for the business. It makes perfect sense. Okay, and you already mentioned something, but could you help us how to understand how to avoid finger pointing between agencies and employees? Will you have multiple stakeholders working for the same goal?
So there's a few things I can think of. So number one, it's trying to encourage people to be adults. I don't think society trains people to be adults. They train them to be half-decent employees, right? You go to school, you sit there, you shut up, you do the exercise, you get the hell out of there, right? That's half-decent employee. So for me, it's trying to say to people, look, we're all here because we're trying to make money, and the way we make money is we collectively can work together. And so for me, it's that thing. It's then explaining, right, you are doing X, Y, and Z. Agency B over here are doing A, B, C. And so if you need to talk to them about A, B, C, I can make that happen for you, right? But they can't, you can't say, well, we can't perform because A, B, C haven't done their work without first saying to me, well, can we have a conversation with, or so-and-so slowing us down, how do we get back on track? Because, I know with projects that I've managed, and I know projects you've managed as well, oftentimes when things go off track, you pick up the phone and you say, right, it doesn't matter who's at fault here, it matters that we're off track and that we need to get back on. And, what can we do in the next 24 hours, 48 hours to actually just get back on track and get things moving again? Because oftentimes if you allow people to finger point or to get aggressive or to get annoyed, it doesn't help actually solve the problem. Whether you say, right, we were right in this situation because we were right at this point, can we just agree that that's where we're all at, and can we agree that there is a pathway out of there that actually puts all of us in a great light, but also puts all of us in sets us all up for success? And so I think, doing these sorts of things, but also encouraging people to know that, their job is not at risk. Their ability to perform isn't at risk if they are open to cooperate and open to be honest and to have some integrity. Whereas if they don't want to be, if they want to point fingers, they want to be childish, they want to be, they want to slow walk things, that's the quickest way to get fired. And I think just finally, I think there are millions of e-com businesses out there. There are billions of businesses in total. We probably really have capacity for 8 to 10 clients at any one time. The average agency probably has, your agency probably only has really 15 to 20 slots at any one time, right? And therefore you don't actually need to, you're not in competition with other agencies, not in competition with other freelancers to get the work, but you can work collaboratively with them if you assess the situation right. And therefore you don't need to compare or contrast or kind of point score. You just put your head down and actually crack on with the work and do the best that you can, because that's how you get that's how you'll continue to get sales and pipeline and what have you. And so that's what I think.
Got it. So what I got from this is basically you want to have all the stakeholders working together. So you need to have meetings with everybody to communicate clearly what the goal is, and then basically allow them to work together, not you as a business owner working one-on-one with each of the agencies. Plus, the deal that you make with them should be flexible enough to allow them to work on specific goals at specific times, not something that you set in stone months earlier. And they don't have the incentive to change the way they work with you if that is needed, because they will not get paid.
Because
thank you for that.
I think the best agencies that I work with, the best freelancers that I've worked with, are the answer is yes, I've heard the problem. And it's not that they're naive, or it's not that they're trying to change everything. It's that they understand that they have value beyond their core skill set, and they have value beyond what they're tasked to do. And if they can see something going off kilter, or they can see something going going wrong, that the worst thing they can do is just sit on the sidelines and go, well, that's not our responsibility. The house is on fire, but that's, I'm not a firefighter, so, I'm off down the pub. It's like, well, if it's a house on fire, what the hell are you going to do? You're going to try and get a bucket of water, right? And so, again, it's trying to hire people that have the mentality of we can collaborate and we can try and enrich the experience for everybody and keep employees, right? By having integrity, by being honest, and by trying to win for the client.
Okay, so with this, we will wrap up this session. And thank you so much, AJ, for sharing your experience
absolute pleasure.
and tips. So until we meet again.